Hey guys, you may know that I already have a 2025 planning video out. And you're asking why in the world is there another one coming out? And first reason is because it just didn't do very well. And I think that the reason for that is I decided to try a little bit of an experiment and put out my seed haul video and the planning video back to back, like literally within minutes of each other on the same day. Seed haul videos tend to do better in general, and so the algorithm chose to push that one out, and the planning video just got completely overshadowed by it. So I felt like it was worth doing a standalone posting on it, and I'm excited to see how that goes. But also, I took a class last weekend, and in that class, I learned some things that prompted me to make some fairly big changes to my garden plan. So I felt like it was worth doing a second take. Before we get into that though, I want to talk about the garden planner that I use, which is an online garden planner. And I am not sponsored by these guys. I'm not an affiliate with them. I just really love this program. So I want to walk through it a little bit. They've got some great tutorials, so I'm not going to go into huge depth and detail about it, but I did want to show you kind of what it does and how it works. It's very comprehensive and I think it's amazing. So let us go online. So you just need to go to territorialseed.com, and I'm going to link all of this below, but go to territorialseed.com and you can see here this tab for garden planner. And if you go there, this page will bring you kind of to the sign up page. So it kind of talks about what they do and what it can do and more about that. Now there is a charge for this. It's only $29 for the entire year though. So I think it's totally worth it. Even if you have a small space, my very first garden that I used this for was 2 fairly small beds and some pots on my deck. And I thought it was great. So, and now I have a very, very large garden. So I think it works really well for kind of any size. You will end up on this page here. And I can't remember because actually if you see, I've been using this for quite a few years. There was a little bit of a gap here when I was singing opera and not doing much gardening, but I've used it very extensively for the last 3 years. And so I don't quite remember if it asks for you this while you're signing up and like setting up your profile. I think it does. But if it doesn't, you can go into here and pick your location and frost dates. And then from here, you put in your address and it will automatically tell you what your last and first frost dates are. I believe it probably gets this from the Farmer's Almanac. That's kind of considered one of the best places to get that kind of information. So my automatic ones that come up, so the Almanac actually says that my last frost date is May 15th. Everybody in these parts that garden say, do not put anything out in your garden that is frost tender until June 1st. And even then, we have had frosts in late June. So, but June 1st. And then my first frost date, they have as September 30th. Now, because they originally said May 15th, I came into this area and put in the correct date for that. But you can also, as you see, if you don't get any frost, you can put that in. If you have a really hot summer that certain things can't grow, you can put that in. So just a really great way to personalize this directly for you. The funny thing is my first frost date of September 30th, when the first 2 years I gardened here, it was actually September 15th. And except both of those years, we didn't get frost until well into October. So I feel pretty comfortable with that last frost date being September 30th. One of the other cool things that they offer is this live chat support here, which I actually didn't even know this until today. And I was kind of looking through it again. It's been so long since I've looked like in detail into this. And this wasn't a thing when I first started, but you can actually ask gardeners questions about gardening, not just about how to use the site, but gardening questions. So it's just a really amazing resource as well. They've got lots of articles and videos that you can watch. So it's totally worth it. The $29 a year, totally worth it. So from right here, if you don't have any plans in here, you can create your new plan. And so let's just do a quick little plan here. You name it whatever you want to name it. You can choose your year, and This would be kind of interesting for you if you were going to be doing a lot of crop rotations. I'm a little limited in what crop rotations I can do because my tomatoes and peppers are always going to be in my high tunnel because that's the best place to grow them here. But if you do crop rotation and you kind of want to know, if I put everything here, what could I put them in the next year and the next year? So you could do multiple, which is just a nice thing for that. And then you put in the size of your garden here and you create a plan. Sorry, I'm using my phone to video this and it's right in front of my screen that I'm using. So actually, let me just scoot this to the side a little bit here. Once you are in your plan here, and this is the exact size of your garden, and these kind of larger squares are a square foot. And you can see over here that you have all of your plants, like hundreds and hundreds of plants, flowers, fruit trees, fruit bushes, vegetables, like all sorts of things. And like if they don't have something that you want, like some kind of a flower, you can go here, add it to your page. Let me just zoom in a little bit here. And then when you click on it, you can come in here, you can add your own varieties, you can customize it. So you can, how much spacing you need between them. So again, just super able to personalize this significantly. But as I showed, you just can pick anything that you want. So let's pick these alliums, pick it, drag it over here. Actually, you don't even have to drag it. You just click it, put it on the thing. And then if you want to add more of them, you can just stretch it out to whatever size your row is. And it will tell you you've put 12 allium plants in your 11-foot, 11-inch bed. But you can literally add things one at a time and it all shows up like this. The other cool thing that it does is if you have a small space or even if you have a large space and you're doing square foot gardening, you can change it to square foot gardening mode using this little button here. Then when you go onto here, click it, it puts a square foot of whatever you choose. And this number here is telling you how many plants of that you can plant in that square foot. Now, the nice thing about this is once you have everything in, you can go to your plant list and it tells you exactly how many of each of those things you either need to start or purchase, however you need to do it. It also then tells you based on your frost dates that you entered in your location, it tells you when you should start them indoors, when you could sow or plant them, like transplant them outdoors, and when you could expect to start harvesting from them. So just a really great information here. And like I said, this flower that we added in that edit area, you can add that information in here if you know it. They also have this section called Garden Object, and it has everything you can want practically. So like an arbor here, and then you can make this arbor as big or small as you want. It offers greenhouses, heated greenhouses, hoop houses, heated hoop houses. You can make your own size or you can pick one. I'll just grab one of these here. And if you put it over your plants, or you put plants under it, then when you go to your plant list again, you will see that now the Agastocky and the basil have this little thing here. They also adjust the dates that you can start them and transplant them because you'll be able to do that earlier because it has the cover of the polytunnel. So just super customizable. Last year, I needed to put irrigation in for my entire garden. So as you can see here, it has got all the different kinds of parts and then different kinds of tubing. So drip line and supply tubing. In particular, I needed to figure out how much supply tubing I needed. So I just added this all around my garden. And actually, let me show you. So I just made a copy of my 2024 garden plan. Oh, I don't think I mentioned that yet. So the other thing you can do is when you create a new plan, if you want to copy an old one, actually, let me see if I can do that. Yes, so this is what it looks like normally. And if you want to create a copy, you can just do this. You can choose which garden bed you want to copy or garden plan you want to copy, and then you can choose exactly what you want it to include. So if you don't want any plants included, if you don't want the irrigation, if you want your perennials but no other plants included, it will do that. So it makes it really easy to like do things year after year. So I had it do a copy of my 2024 plan, and then I just put in all of the tubing that I would need to irrigate my garden. And kind of like the plant list, you can then go to the part list and it will tell you that in particular, I needed 619 feet of supply tubing to get to all of my beds and the hoop house and all of the various places I needed it to go, which is super helpful because tubing comes in typically 500-foot rolls, 200-foot rolls, 100-foot rolls, 50-foot rolls, and it can save you a lot of money if you're not purchasing, because probably if I just guessed, I would have said I needed 2 500-foot rolls, and then I would have had so much excess. So this way I could buy a 500-foot roll and a 200-foot roll and have plenty with some left over. Anyway, just again, very super helpful thing to use. Now, I will say I have not looked and researched garden planning programs for quite a few years now, probably 3 years, I guess. And there could be other plans out there that are just as good or better than this, and maybe free. That was not what was available when I looked. I tried several different kinds, and they just either the free ones were super limited or they were quite a bit more expensive than this. So this just, I found, was the best one out there. There are a couple of disadvantages to this, so I do want to talk about those too. The first one is that you can't do like a 3D view of your garden. It's always going to be a flat overhead view of it. So like if you use a program like SketchUp, you can see a 3D view, which is very pretty, but it doesn't have all of the plant stuff and the planting cycles and frost dates and all of that kind of stuff. It doesn't do any of that for you. And then you also can only use this on a browser. It does not have an app, which that's not a huge deal, but it is a thing. And then the last one is that you can't really use it for just general landscaping. They do, like I said, they have trees like apple trees, fruit trees, that sort of thing, and fruit bushes, but they don't have ornamental trees. So a spruce tree or a maple or a dogwood bush or those kinds of things. So you can't really use it to do your lawn. It's really just for flowers, fruits, and vegetables. But those are really the only disadvantages that I have found up to this point. And speaking of things getting better, their AI is actually coming into this arena as well and doing some pretty cool things. I actually just stumbled on this the other day, even though I use ChatGPT on a regular basis. A friend of mine mentioned that she went looking for it and it really was helpful. So I found this article here, which again, I'll link this below. And she talks about how she used ChatGPT to help her plan her garden. And so she just gave it some basic information, what she wanted to plant, and then it told her what she should plant. And then she just kind of kept building on it. She even sent it this picture that has, it actually probably looks very familiar. She's probably using the same garden planning tool. Sent it this picture and it said, no, you shouldn't plant things next to each other. Anyway, great article. Definitely look it up. It could be super helpful. But I think you still will want the garden planner as well. Like I said, I did do a 2025 plan already, and this is it. So it hasn't changed, like the hardscape hasn't changed. Everything's still in the same place. What changed was this class that I took. And the class that I took was about companion planting. And I already knew about like the generals about companion planting and how beneficial it can be. And I had done a little bit of it, very limited basis. But I didn't really know kind of the specifics around it. So I went to this class, and this gentleman, H.G.L. Hall, has a book, and he was giving this class, he's a local here, that talks in detail about companion planting and very, very understandable, easy ways. This is an easy, quick read. And I learned some things that I did not know. So let's go through the garden, and I will walk you through what I'm growing this year and the reasons why I'm growing some of them, as well as some of the changes that I made because of this companion planting stuff. So let's go. Let's start in this corner right here. Oh, let me tell you a few things about the garden first. So This area here faces east, and faces our house, so our lawn is right here. This area faces south, so the sun comes from this direction all year, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. So west is here. This is where the horse pasture is and horse shelter. And then of course, this is the north side. The total size of the garden is 47 by 110 feet. The actual perimeter of it is fully fenced. The 47 feet is weird. It's because it's where this loafing shed was already, and we didn't want to have some like weird jagged fence lines. So we just went with 47 feet. And then I also should mention that I am in Southeast Idaho, and you saw my first and last frost dates. We are a zone 5B here, which doesn't really matter for most things. Actually, it doesn't matter for anything but perennial plants, most of which we are not talking about today. So it doesn't have any bearing on anything, but just so you know. All right, so let's start in this corner over here. This bed here is my Vajayga bed, and so I just have the one L-shaped bed, and I'm using this mostly for kind of a cut flower garden, as well as some interesting plants, which we will talk about in a little bit more detail here soon. You might be asking what all of these that are just sitting out here in the middle of nowhere are. And those are because I have a bunch of pots on my deck and in front of the house that I want to put flowers in. So I want to get them in this plan so I know how many I should plant. And actually, let me show you what my plant list looks like. It is pretty extensive. You can add in what kind of basil you're doing, so I know exactly how much of each of them I'm doing. You can see here again that these are in the polytunnel. Doing different cabbages, all of my peppers, some different cosmos and carnations, onions, lots of onions, pumpkins. So very, very extensive plant list here. But going back to our plan. So I wanted to make sure that I knew how many of these I should plant. Then going along the perimeter here, currently I have 25 of these 10-gallon grow bags. And for the most part, they hold flowers, some herbs, but flowering herbs. And that's what I will do again this year. Some of them will hopefully come back, my feverfew and my yarrow. They should be perennial here, so hopefully I don't have to replant those, which is great. But most of them I'll have to replant, which is fine. I have some echinacea that may come back as well. And then I hope to have sunflowers all the way around the east and west side of the fence line. I love sunflowers. I think it would be beautiful. But as we kind of keep coming down along here, we actually have a fairly good sized aspen tree right here in the corner of the lawn. And then of course the potting shed here, like I said, the sun comes from this direction for the most part. So it gets some direct morning sun, but as it goes behind the aspen tree, it starts getting some filtered sunlight. And then it gets some direct, fairly decently warm sunlight, probably until 1 o'clock-ish. And then once it passes the potting shed, this area is completely shaded. So what I have here are things that don't like heat, and that is rhubarb and cilantro. Cilantro, despite what you might think, because it is very prevalent in Thai and Mexican cuisine, both of which are very warm places for the most part, cilantro does not like heat at all, and it will go to bolt. It will go to seed as quickly as possible if it gets hot. So if you can plant it in a shaded area, it does fairly well. So last year I planted them here, and I will do that again. And I was able to harvest off it all year, which is amazing. And I did succession planting. It was great. And then I'm hoping my poor rhubarb plants, I don't know if they're going to come back, honestly. If they do, I'm planting cilantro in front of it because mice kept eating my rhubarb plants, which rhubarb leaves are toxic to most things. So I'm not sure how they were eating it and not dying. But anyway, they didn't seem to like the cilantro, the smell of cilantro. So I decided to put some cilantro in front of it, and suddenly they stopped eating them. So I'm going to try that again if my rhubarb comes up. As we come along here, I have got my raspberry bushes. I don't have this many right now. I think I have 8 or 9. I hope to get more this year and get them in. Oh, I actually have a couple of blackberry bushes here, so I need to add those. And then this bed kind of behind the loafing shed. The first year I planted, I put my potatoes in there, which did terrible. We'll talk about that more in a second. And then last year I put my garlic in there, which actually did pretty well. It's just empty right now. I don't have anything in it. I certainly could put stuff in it, but for now I don't have anything in it. And then kind of a wide view of the garden altogether. Like I said, this is the north side, so my hoop house is here. The potting shed with the little deck is here, shelter's here, and this is the chicken coop and run. And then all of my beds, I have 12 of them. They are 4 by 8 foot. And my keyhole beds are, I think, 4 foot square, 8 foot square, 8 foot square, I believe. Let me see. Yes, 8 feet by 2 feet. And then I have a pergola here. I don't have this fountain yet because it's going to be a gift from my mom for my birthday, but my birthday is the end of September. And that's not a great time to be setting up a fountain in Southeast Idaho because I would have never been able to run it, basically, because of freezing temperatures. So I have actually restarted my search for one, and hopefully we'll have that soon. So very excited for that. So that is all of this. Now, this is actually my original 2025 plan. And if we go here, you can see I did a second one, which is with companion planting. Now, up above, like, big picture doesn't look any different. But if we go into detail, it looks fairly different. So, not in all areas, but definitely in some. So first of all, this is my first year I'm going to try potatoes in a raised bed. Like I said, my potatoes did dismally in the in-ground bed that I tried, which is kind of a sad thing that somebody from Idaho can't grow potatoes. So I'm going to try and redeem myself. Potatoes in this bed, and then this is going to be an arched trellis between the two beds. So I have a bunch of cucumber here, and then I'm also going to do something a little different with my grape and cherry tomatoes this year, because they get very large very quickly. They ripen, they're the first things to ripen. So they do a little bit better in our cooler temperatures here. We get hot during the day, but we cool down into the low 50s, sometimes even down into the high 40s at night, even during the height of summer. So things like peppers and tomatoes just don't do great outside because of that. But I think the cherry tomatoes should do fine. Like I said, they get big. They get ginormous if you let them. So I'm just going to let them crawl up this trellis on both sides, and hopefully you do really well. A little bit of an experiment, but we'll see. So these are going to be my Juliet, which is a grape tomato that I absolutely adore. And then my first companion planting that I did is this chamomile here with the cucumbers. And I have little notes over here, so that's why I'm looking over here every once in a while. Oh, actually, I should talk about the potatoes. So I do not have any companion plants for my potatoes because the best one for them is horseradish. And I would love to plant horseradish, but I'm not going to plant it in a bed because they can be very invasive and take over a space very quickly, which I don't want to happen. So we're not going to have any companion plants for the potatoes. It's fine. But for the cucumbers, I have this chamomile. And one of the cool things I learned in this class was that so my idea of companion planting was about deterring pests and bringing in pollinators, and pretty much that was it. But they can also do other things. So one of the things that they can do for certain things, chamomile and cucumbers, the chamomile enhances the flavor of the cucumbers. I had no idea that plants could do that. It was amazing. So I have planted some chamomile with my cucumbers. And then on this side, actually, let's get a little bit closer here. You can see, like I said, my other tomato. I have beans. These will be pole beans that will also grow up over the trellis. My celery is here. I have Swiss chard and kale in this row, which we don't eat at all. but the girls will love it. The chickens will love it. So they will be getting that. And then last year, I actually planted my chamomile here. Did great. Chamomile loves to self-seed, so I'm quite certain I will have hundreds of little chamomile plants poking their heads up this spring. So I'm just gonna leave them there and let them do their thing. And then one of the other companion things I planted were petunias, because they, let's see, what do they do? They're great with beans because they repel aphids and tomato hornworms as well. Then we come to this bed. This bed looks like a mess, I know. So I'm going to try doing a Three Sisters bed. If you're not familiar with what Three Sisters is, that is a way that Native Americans used to plant crops for centuries. They used this way of planting crops for maize, beans, and squash. So I thought, you know what? I have a bed with corn in it. Let's give it a try. And I needed to move beans around, which I will get to also in a second. So what we have here is, let me move one of my pumpkins. I have a row of corn, a row of beans, row of corn, beans, corn, and then pumpkins kind of spread throughout the bed. And what happens is as the corn grows, it will grow faster than the beans, and the beans will start using the corn as its support to climb up. And then the pumpkins will cover the dirt underneath both of those things, keeping it moist, more moist, keeping it cooler, and keeping weeds out. So it's a very symbiotic relationship between them all. The other one is that beans are nitrogen fixers, which means that they can grab nitrogen from the air. They bring it down into their roots, it spreads into the dirt, and other plants can then use that nitrogen for themselves. Corn is a big nitrogen feeder, so having it with the beans just works really, really well together. So we are going to try that, see how it goes. I added cosmos here because they are a great deterrent of cornworms, which I had never actually heard of before. So hopefully my cosmos will keep them away if I ever get them. Oh, and this little guy right here is just one of my water spigots. Then we come across here. So not only can you companion plant for things like enhancing flavor and bringing in pollinators and repelling certain pests, but they can also be a physical aid to other plants. So I'm going to plant another row of corn here, and this is my beet row. Beets also don't like a lot of heat and direct sunlight, so the corn is going to act as shade for them. So again, it's just another great companion planting that you can do. And then here I have some of my onions. I have some chives here that should be coming back this year. They are also perennial here. And I'll put some lettuce and some rosemary herbs here. Then in this bed, this bed I also changed because I had beans in both of these beds. And the thing that I learned is that you should not have beans or legumes, any legumes. So beans, peas, peanuts, any of those kinds of things. And any alliums, so onions, shallots, garlic, all of that kind of stuff. They should not be next to each other because the alliums secrete a toxic substance. I'm not sure what kind it is, but it is not good for beans. And last year I did have beans next to some shallots, and the beans did not do very well. I had no idea that this was the case. In fact, onions and alliums in general was one of those plants that I was kind of using as a general keep pests away from other plants, not knowing that I could actually be harming all of my legumes by having them there. So great information to have. Especially if you're doing what I'm doing, which is a lot of interplanting. So I had to move those. Now I do still have peas in this bed because this is my other trellis and I want the peas to grow up over it. I'm doing mostly shelling peas, and so they're not right next to each other. So I'm hoping that's enough space that they still do okay. If they don't, it's fine. This side doesn't have anything, so they should be okay. These are poppies here, California poppies, and some more lettuce. And now you might be asking, you might have noticed in some of my other beds as well, the potatoes take up 9 square feet, technically, in square foot gardening. But the reality is most of a squash plant is its vines. And I just train my vines to fall off the edges of the beds, and they can spread out on the ground all over the place. I have the space to do that, so I just let them do it, and they actually take up very little space in the actual bed. So I know it looks like they're on top of each other, but they should be okay. And then at this end, this is my sun gold tomatoes, my cherry tomatoes that again I'm going to have go up over the trellis. Then in this bed is one of my fun things this year. I'm gonna try growing peanuts. Now, peanuts require, for the most part, a very long growing season, much longer than we have. But I did find a variety of peanut that is specifically for shorter growing seasons. So we're gonna try it, see how it goes. Be fun to make our own peanut butter from peanuts that we grew. We'll see. And then I just have some bush beans and a bunch of basil over here. Now, one of the other plants I have added in here, and also that I have used kind of regularly as a deterrent for all pests, is marigolds. If you've ever been around marigolds for any length of time, you know they're pretty stinky. Like you don't want to put those in a vase in your kitchen. I mean, they're not awful, but they definitely have a strong aroma. And so what I didn't know is that it not only deters pests because of that aroma, but it also masks the smell of other plants that bug would be looking for. So in this case, it's a bug that goes after onions. I can't remember what it is. An onion fly of some kind, something like that, allium fly. The other thing that they do is their roots secrete a substance that attacks nematodes that they deter the nematodes, which are these tiny little microscopic bugs that go after tomato roots and cause like knots and stuff on them, which basically end up killing the plant. And marigolds make those not want to be around them. So again, just one of those things I never really knew, that not only is the stuff above ground can be beneficial, but also the stuff below ground. So you'll see I have these rose bushes here. I'll talk about my keyhole gardens in a second, but right now I have some rose bushes in this keyhole garden, and I just put them there last year because I needed to get them in the ground. It was a place to put them, so I just popped them in there. I don't know how many of them are gonna survive even, but if any of them do, I want to transplant them into pots here along the side of the chicken coop. Along the back side of the beds, so this was actually one of the beds I had some beans in that I needed to move some stuff around. So now I have an empty space here. Don't know what I'm going to put it. I'm sure I'll fill it with something. Another very beneficial pairing are carrots and onions, because they both repel the bugs that like them, the flies, carrot flies and allium flies, I think they're called. So they do really well together. Not only that, but carrots grow deep, right? They're a long root. So they are taking nutrients and water from much lower. Alliums are very short rooted and surface rooted, so they are taking all of the stuff from the surface. So they go off of different spots, but they can grow in the same space. So much better use of your space. The other thing that he brought up was the idea of things that grow fast versus things that grow slow. So carrots take a long time to grow. They take a long time to germinate. They grow very slowly. And radishes, which germinate very quickly, like sometimes within days, and grow quickly. You're harvesting them, within a couple of weeks. So he recommended planting your radishes on top of your carrots. And what happens is they grow up, they germinate quickly. And one of the problems with carrot seeds is, particularly here, because we have very windy, dry springs, is keeping the carrot seeds wet so they can germinate. and it's just very hard. They get dried out very quickly here. But if we have these little radish plants that are over them, it's going to protect them a little bit from the wind. It will keep the moisture a little bit better around them. And then once you harvest them, your carrots should be, you know, a couple inches up. And it's just a natural way to thin your carrots out, because who can plant a single carrot? It's impossible. But the radishes will kind of help you because you're pulling them up, so you're going to pull up some carrots. We don't actually particularly, goodness gracious, I can't talk today, like radishes. I mean, I'll eat them, but they're not a favorite thing of mine. So I'm hoping the chickens will like them. But I thought it was worth a try. So I am going to try doing that. I don't have the radishes on here yet, but I will. These are going to be my garlic beds. These were planted last October, so we'll just wait for them to come up. I will need to do good fertilization here probably in another month or so as they start poking up, but they're pretty much set and go kind of things. I am going to put some pumpkins in these corners. Again, I'm just going to let them grow out into this space over here. Over here in this bed, I have my tomatillos, and I'm taking a little bit of a risk with these onions. I'm hoping that tomatillos don't grow super fast because they like heat, so they're a little slow going to get started here. And then I'm hoping that the onions will be established enough by the time the tomatillos are big enough to shade them more than they would necessarily want to be shaded. If they were really small, it would probably kill them. So hopefully they will be okay. And of course, this bed is facing south, so they still should get plenty of light from this direction. And then I also have leeks and parsley. And then I've got some squash here, my gold zucchini, which were super prolific last year. So I'm excited to have them. And then you also see kind of scattered around here, I've got some nasturtiums. Again, I kind of knew that they're called a trap crop. So they attract things like aphids, and the aphids go there instead of things that you don't want them to eat. And not that I want them to eat my nasturtium plants, but I'd rather they eat my nasturtiums than other things. So, so they attract the aphids. They also, their flowers attract beneficial insects and pollinators. Then this second to last bed is all of my brassicas. And I put them all in the same bed. So I have cauliflower, cabbage, and broccoli because we have a very serious cabbage moth problem here. Terrible cabbage moth problem. So I put them all in the same bed, and I will put insect netting over them as soon as I plant them. I did it last year for my cabbage, and they did phenomenal. I think I maybe found 1 or 2 little worms, which is actually what causes the problem with cabbage moths, is they lay their eggs in the brassicas and then the worms eat them. So I'm going to do that again. I've never had great luck with broccoli, but I'm going to try again because I love broccoli. So we're going to try again. And then I'm actually going to do Romanesco cauliflower. David's not a huge fan of cauliflower. He'll eat it, but it's like he won't choose to eat it. And so Romanesco, I think, is a cross between cauliflower and broccoli. Somebody correct me if that's not right. And it's kind of got a yellow-green color to it. So I'm hoping that it will be broccoli-esque enough, because David loves broccoli, that he'll eat that. I love cauliflower as well. So anyway, we'll see. And then the chamomile here and rosemary, they both deter the cabbage moth. So hopefully they will help. The dill brings in beneficial insects that like to eat cabbage moths. So all good. That's why I have all of those in that bed. Then my last bed here, I just have my shallots and some more carrots, because apparently I think I need a lot of carrots, and my 2 kind of just normal green zucchinis. And of course, more pumpkins. I love growing pumpkins. One of my favorite vegetables to grow. All right, now we come to our hoop house, and I'm just gonna move this guy out of the way for a second so we can take a closer look. So this, like I said, all but my grape and cherry tomatoes and all of my peppers are in my hoop house just because they do better. They did excellent in here last year. So I have a lot of peppers. And as you can see, I did label them all, so I know exactly how many of each variety that I want. So paprika, my ancho poblanos, cayennes, etc., etc. Petunias and marigolds in these beds for the same reasons that I have them in the others. And then these are my tomatoes. I labeled them each what actual variety they are, so I know how many to plant. I've actually already started seed for all of these, and they are all up, which is exciting. And I did pretty good this year. I only planted one cell for each one that I needed. Granted, I planted 2 seeds in each of them, and almost all of them have germinated both seeds. So I still have a lot of extra, but at least I didn't do extra with 2 seeds in it that all came up. Anyway, I shouldn't have as many extra as I had last year. And then along this side, which I'm not sure how well they'll do because the tomatoes will really shade them out once they get tall. I had peppers over here last year and they did okay, so we'll see. Anyway, so I put basil on this side because I knew that basil and tomato were a good thing to put together, not just for eating, but also it detracts bad bugs that want tomatoes. But like the chamomile with the cucumber, the basil will actually enhance the flavor of the tomatoes, which is super cool. I just had no idea that could happen. So I'm gonna put a bunch of basil next to all of my tomatoes. I did not have that there before my class. And then on this side is another one of my things I'm looking forward to. Well, I'm gonna try a watermelon. Never had good luck with watermelons. I think I've only ever gotten a plant about this big. We'll see. But the rest of it is for the most part going to be cut flowers. So zinnias, carnations, agastocky, anise hyssop is what agastocky is. Gomphrena, lisianthus, if they grow. They have germinated, but they are growing so slow. They are the tiniest of little plants right now. And it's been a month and a half since I started those. Anyway, baby's breath, and then this is all going to be my eucalyptus status, my blue disc daisies, and then I did want to put, because basil, like peppers and tomatoes, doesn't do great in cool temperatures, kind of anything below 50 it doesn't like. So I put some of my fancier basils in here, Tulsi or holy basil, lemon basil, which smells divine. I love the smell of lemon basil. Lime basil, and then some purple basil that I did last year that did excellent. I'm gonna get some of those in there. And that is what is in. And my hope is that because I'm putting these into the hoop house, I will have cut flowers much sooner than I did last year. Because last year, I probably really wasn't cutting flowers until late July, early August. So hopefully I'm gonna plant everything in here in early April, and means everything should come up much sooner and have blooms and stuff much sooner. So I'm excited for that. All right, back here, these are also some 10-gallon grow bags, and I have some interesting things in here. So skullcap, mullein, comfrey, and if you watch my seed haul, you'll know why I'm doing this, but these are all basic. I mean, they do have flowers, but they're not really grown for their flowers. They're grown for their medicinal purposes. And I have gotten into a partnership with a friend of mine who does a lot of herbal things. So tinctures and salves and creams and all of that kind of stuff. And while I would love to do that stuff myself, it does take a lot of study and time to learn how to use it properly and not hurt somebody. So, and I just don't have time to do that. And she doesn't like growing things. And so I'm going to grow the things. She's going to make the things, and she will give me the product after it's made. And I think it'll be great. I'm very excited for it. Hopefully these grow. We shall see. But that's what's going to be back here. Like I said, they do have flowers, but they're not the prettiest plants, which is kind of why I have them hidden back here behind the hoop house. They should get plenty of sun from the southern, or from the west, so it should be fine. So that is basically it. Oh no, wait, I need to talk about my keyhole gardens. So the keyhole gardens, they have, for the most part, flowers. So cosmos and nigella. I have, these are flowers as well, but calendula. And, you know, my friend, not only the ones that are kind of different types of plants, herbs, for my friend, a lot of these things in my garden she can also use, like the calendula, the chamomile, that sort of thing. I have some thyme that I'm hoping will come back this year from last year, borage, pumpkins. I have some clematis in this corner that hopefully will come back this year. We'll see. And this is another one of the ones I'm growing for my friend, for the passion flower, not the fruit. The problem with it is it's too cold here to be perennial, and it only blooms on second year vines, at least from what I've read. Please let me know if you've had a different experience with passion fruit vines. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing. Anyway, they also can become huge plants with vines, so it's not like I could take them down and bring them in somewhere where they'd be safe without them taking up a huge amount of room. So I'm gonna grow them, see what happens. We'll see. But I think it would be pretty have them growing up the pergola and kind of adding that to the pergola. And then this keyhole bed is actually very similar to the last one. In fact, it's exactly the same, except that I have lemongrass here. And this lobelia inflata is actually one of the medicinal herbs. It's not the trailing lobelia that you see in like pots and stuff. It's the one that it has a big long stalk flower. It's a pretty flower. It's purple. So that's what those are. I have a video talking in pretty great detail about the making of this garden and how huge of a project it was. It was a massive, massive project. And it took us, I mean, I really wasn't planting things in the beds until mid to late June, which is fine because we had a pretty cold spring, but it definitely stunted a lot of my garden. So I'm very excited this year to just be able to go straight in, get stuff planted in the beds because the beds are all there and ready to go. And so I don't think I have very many big projects planned for this year. One of them is right now the 10-gallon grow bags that are kind of around the perimeter. I have 25 of them, and I would like to add another 25. So that's a bit of a project. They're heavy when they're full of dirt. So to get those all filled, this harvest table right here, right now, we just have a piece of very warped now plywood on some sawhorses, but I ended up using it all last summer as kind of like a place to put things like vegetables and stuff that I picked. So I've asked David to build me one that's standing height, that's kind of permanent there. So need to do that. I did not finish painting the roofs of my potting shed and the coop and run, so I need to get that done. What else the fountain, that's going to be new. Some additional pots here and at the potting shed. Let's see what else. I think that's basically, and get my compost bins built. So no big projects this year. I think the biggest one will be, and we're going to hire this out, I'm not going to do it myself, is we are going to replace the fence all around the backyard to match the fence that goes around the rest of the garden. And this gate that's right here is not an arbor here right now, it's just a gate. We're going to move it to here in the center so it matches the gate on this side. So it's a little more symmetrical, and it will also be in a straight line to the steps of our patio instead of right now a fairly significant diagonal. That doesn't really matter, but anyway. So that'll be a big project that we'll hire out. And that should be it. Thanks so much for coming along with me and looking at my garden plan. And I hope you learned a little something about companion planting like I did. Like I said, I will link this book below, also not an affiliate, the garden planner and that article about using AI for garden planning. Hopefully those are all helpful to you. And yeah, I'm getting very excited for the growing season. Like I said, I already have lots of little tiny plants coming up, and we're actually very close to that beginning of April where I can start putting stuff into the hoop house. In fact, the other day I went into the hoop house and dug around in one of the beds, and while it was fairly cool down below, it was not frozen, and the dirt, probably the first 5 inches or so, was quite warm. So I'm excited. All right, I hope you guys are excited for your gardening season, and I will see you next time. Bye.